Hi, my name's John and this is my partner Michelle. And this is our 7-year-old 70,000 mile Tesla Model S.
Come with us as we travel through 9 countries from the south coast of the UK to the top of Norway. A journey of over 5,000 miles in a car that the tabloid press would have you believe has little to no battery performance left.
And let's see whether the Tesla charging network is up to the job of getting us all the way there and all the way back. Because if it is, Elon's paying for all the fuel. Welcome to the long free ride. Welcome back to the long free ride. If you're a regular here, thanks for dropping by again. If you're new, then welcome. We've got great videos on the Midnight Sun, the Ice Hotel, Stockholm, Copenhagen and Bruges. But back to this episode. We leave our apartment in Tromsø, head back across the bridge that scared me so much, and then head off towards Svolvær, which is a town on the Lofoten Islands. So zooming in and taking a look at the route we'll use, we backtrack ourselves for a little bit to get truly back onto the mainland, and then we head south. We have one stop for a charge around lunchtime and then head into the Lofoten Islands to eventually stop at Svolvær, where we have another apartment to stay at. But first we had to get the car out of the car park, and that was going to be a bit trickier than you really want it to be. As you can see by looking at the walls of the car park ramp, we wouldn't have been the first people to have lost some paintwork, and they'd even put up rubber protectors to try and stop damage to cars. Car parks that were built 10 to 15 years ago have just not been able to cope with the bloating of the modern SUV and other American type vehicles. And if you're thinking, oh well, you did get out without touching the walls, the sad reality is that on the way out I just clipped the connector between the ramp and the pavement on the right hand rear wheel and scratched it up a bit more. But if you were to look at my wheels, they're scratched all the way around anyway, because you just can't help but curb the car. Having left the city, crossing the massive bridge that runs between the island and the mainland, we took one last view of the Arctic Cathedral and the view up to the cable car station. Sadly, today would have been a much better day to have got some footage up there, but we've got to keep moving because we're on our 30-day time limit and we don't have time to go and revisit places. The incident in the car park had made me think about some of the things that I don't like about the Tesla Model S. But that's not going to be a problem nowadays because Tesla are no longer really marketing the Model S and the Model X to the UK market. They've chosen not to develop the tooling for right-hand drive versions, and I doubt very many new owners would buy one if it was only left-hand drive. So that leaves the Model 3 and the Model Y, which are much more suited to UK and European roads and are available in right-hand drive versions. But back to my car. One of the inconveniences I've constantly had is its size. It doesn't fit easily within parking spaces. It juts out when you park it in the road. And as you've seen, multi-storey car parks can be a nightmare. There's a cinema local to us in Brighton at the marina that we often visit. And if I can't get parked on the lower or first level, I actually leave, because I know from experience that if I go up to the higher levels, I cannot make the turns without clipping one wheel or another, as the ramps are just so narrow. And I guess the other gripe would be how often the tailgate lock fails. If you've watched this series, you'll see that that happened to us earlier in the trip, and I'm guessing that'll happen to us again in about another year's time or so. But if that's the only complaints we've got after 5 years of living with the car, then I guess we really shouldn't grumble. There's no motor manufacturer out there, whether it's Tesla or any of the big German brands or the Chinese brands that are coming, that is going to offer me free supercharging for the life of the vehicle. Compared to running a petrol car, that perk saves me thousands of pounds a year. Every time I go on a long trip, Tesla pays for the fuel. So I'll put up with it being a bit too wide and having to replace the cinch motor on the trunk.
So please click on the subscribe button. It means a lot to us. We're just a channel that's starting out, and that would really help us. If you like the video content, please give us a thumbs up as well. And of course, all of this is completely free to you. So we made it to my favourite time of day, lunchtime, and yet another convenient stop with a Tesla supercharger. You can probably hear the hum in the background, which is the immense battery power kicking off and fans whirring in the Tesla superchargers whilst it connects to the car and gives us all of that juice. We unpacked a picnic, went over to the garage and got a fresh cup of coffee and sat down on some picnic benches in the sunshine to enjoy our lunch and a little bit of a recharge ourselves. I know we haven't talked about the Tesla much, but to be fair, it hasn't given us any issues whatsoever. There's a few squeaks from the interiors, but it's 7 years old and there's no engine noise to cover that. I've been really impressed with the Tesla software in the car, predicting what charge will arrive at each charging point with. It's been pretty spot on accurate. So by this point, we could trust that if it said we were going to arrive somewhere with 7%, we'd arrive with 7 or more if we drove conservatively. I've been learning more about the Tesla during this trip because I really hadn't driven it much before we set off. And the only real concern I've had is when it's come to charging the car. Sometimes I find that the cable won't come out of the Tesla holder unless I really yank it. And that always makes me feel concerned that I'm going to break it. And I've sometimes called John out of the car to come and do it. But I have to say, that's largely around my confidence in yanking it. Not that I can't do it physically, I absolutely can every time. It's just been, I haven't had the confidence that I do need to pull it that hard. It always feels to me like it's stuck in and it shouldn't be stuck in that much. The other issue I've had charging the car is with the CCS adapter that we use. It's an old Tesla, so we need this, but I can't always disconnect it from the charging cable, and obviously I need to take the adapter with us so that we can charge at other points. Now this adapter allows us to connect to the Tesla new fast charge network, but also other manufacturer chargers using the CCS2 standard. Now this is the de facto standard across the UK and Europe, so it is important that I always remember to take the adapter with us, and again, if I can't get it off the cable, I would just have to ask somebody for help. As a couple, doing this trip across Europe has given us lots of confidence in driving the car long distance. To be fair, John probably had that confidence already. It's more about me. Earlier this year in the UK, we were driving from Brighton down to Exmouth in Devon for a family weekend event, and then we went from there up to Blackpool Tower to see the illuminations, and then we drove back home again. And that was the longest trip I'd done in the car over a short number of days. I wasn't driving for most of it, but it gave me the confidence that the UK infrastructure does work. And with free supercharging, it was much cheaper to do it in John's Tesla than it was in my own hybrid car.
Around mid-afternoon, we came across a very large bridge that seemed to be connecting the mainland to the Lofoten Islands. It almost screamed gateway to the Lofoten Islands, so we thought we'd stop and get some footage of it before we crossed over. As you might have noticed in the footage, the sides of the bridge seemed to have some sort of cladding on them, and this was because the bridge was under maintenance. Once again, we seem to be stuck high up in the air on a bridge, but this time I didn't really have the collywobbles. You may recall that when we arrived in Norway, it was as though someone had flicked a switch marked stunning scenery. Well, it turns out now they have another control and they can switch it up to epic. However, the skies were now beginning to fill with some cloud, and we'd seen on the long-range forecast that it didn't look that great for our stay in the Lofoten Islands. But we've had beautiful weather for the last 18 days, so we can't really grumble. Let's face it, Norway's not renowned for wall-to-wall sunshine.
We arrived at Svolvær and John charged the car whilst I popped into the supermarket across the road. Again, really convenient charger. I was able to do a quick shop for supplies and we were staying self-catering for the next couple of nights. So really made it home from home. That of course meant getting John proper English tea so he can have a full mugful of his favourite brew.
Let's have a look at the stats. For us, today was a pretty short driving day. We only did 265 miles, which is 426 kilometres. To do that, we needed 90 kilowatt hours of battery power. And we stopped 2 times to charge, once at lunchtime and once when we arrived in Svolvær. In all, we charged for 1 hour and 6 minutes. Our cost for charging was zero. Those of you who have been watching will know that we get free charging. If you're new and you don't understand why we don't have to pay for charging, take a look at the video listed in the comments below. And lastly, there were no other ancillaries that we needed to buy for the car. So let's add the stats from this episode across to the trip stats.
We hope the Long Free Ride is demonstrating that you can do long road trips in an electric vehicle and giving some hints of what the future of motoring looks like. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to help us bring this message to a wider audience. What do you think the future of mobility looks like? Let us know in the comments. Can you see what those are, John?
Well, they look like fish heads and guts that have all been tied up, maybe for the birds to eat or something.
Oh, grim.